A recent report showed that in late 2022, the United States prepared rigorously for a potential Russian nuclear strike in Ukraine. What was once considered the unimaginable is now within the realm of possibility. We've lived in relative peace for the last several decades, and scenarios like this have been relegated to possibilities of the past era of the Cold War. But we're now living in a changing time where we have to consider the potential for nuclear war, and more importantly, develop practical plans. In this video, we're going to discuss 3 signs nuclear war is imminent, what to do if you have advance warning, what to do in the moments of the nuclear bombs detonating, and what to do in the 2 weeks afterwards. We're going to cover a lot in this video, so let's get started. 3 warning signs. We've all seen the movies. Satellites say detect a launch. NORAD teams scramble to assess a threat, inform the president, and so on. That's great that there's a system in place, but it doesn't really help us folks out of that top secret loop. There may not be any alarm that sounds, no emergency broadcast, no official interruption of your day. We may not know that there's a nuclear weapon that's about to explode near us until it's right upon us. And at that point, we've lost precious minutes and seconds that we could have used to survive. We have to pay attention to an entirely different set of signs. First, almost every disaster of this magnitude will have some kind of run-up to it. If you pay attention to the news, you're going to see more stories about the possibility of nuclear exchange and threats by world leaders. Even without that, there will likely be some early indicators like a barrage of cyber attacks meant to cause confusion and catch a country off its guard. There will be covert threats and accusations made where one country accuses the other of planning a dirty bomb or nuclear detonation as a false flag event. There's going to be significant confusion and chatter, and you won't know whom to believe. And look, that's okay. You should use this time to build your plan, identify blast and fallout shelters and routes to them, and ensure your preps are ready. Know what you'll do at any given point in your day. Know what you will grab if you can and where you can seek cover immediately and in the long term. Second, your power is likely to go out. Emergency services may not sound the sirens or send a message on the emergency broadcast system before everything goes offline and dark. A nuclear blast thousands of miles away will create an electromagnetic pulse, an EMP so powerful and far-reaching that it will fry every circuit, overwhelm transformers, and shut down everything. If the blast occurs at ground level, the pulse may be contained to less than 25 miles, but if it detonates over the target, thousands of feet or miles in the air, the range of that pulse could stretch thousands of miles from the initial detonation point. And even if you don't see the blast, but only a pulse of bright light far on the horizon, the EMP may be enough to reach you. It won't be your usual outage because of lightning or a single transformer blowing up. It's going to be epic. Many transformers will experience a surge and blow. Screens will go dark, and PCs and small electronics may sizzle. Most every piece of unprotected equipment, from vehicles to cell phones, will stop working. And that is far from different than the run-of-the-mill power outage. Think of this like being on the shore when all the water rapidly recedes for miles and miles. That means a tsunami is coming. Don't hesitate when the power goes out and immediately head to deep cover. You have at most mere minutes. If the EMP occurs, you may have avoided the first blast zone, but your area could be next. The third sign that nuclear war is starting is the obvious physical signs. Get to cover if you see line after line of condensation trails in the sky. I live 250 miles or so from Vandenberg, where SpaceX has launched quite a few rockets recently. Now, each launch is visible in the sky, even though it's hundreds of miles over the ocean. A single launch can be seen in Arizona, over 500 miles away, and then the next state over. If there were hundreds of launchers responding to an incoming attack, the sky would be surrealistically filled with hundreds of bright lights and contrails. Now, obviously, a blast on the horizon is a clear physical sign. News and information, it travels at different rates based on connection and the individual. So you may be quietly enjoying your lunch and begin to see other people panicking and running. Any of those obvious physical signs would be a sign that you should put your plan in motion immediately. What do you do if you have time to prepare? If you recognize any of the signs mentioned earlier, you should proceed to implement your plan. You may have anywhere from seconds to minutes to get to somewhere safer. Surviving a nuclear blast will depend significantly upon your location and proximity to it when it occurs. If the detonation is not overhead and you are out of the blast radius by at least 5 miles, studies indicate you can survive if you're sheltered in a sturdy enough structure. And that would be a concrete structure with few windows or openings, or a structure underground like a basement, a subway, an underground parking structure, or even a mall. Since surviving the initial blast is your first priority, make sure you know where these places are in relation to where you are throughout your day. Know the shortest route to them. If you can get to one of these locations, note both your direction home and a direction that is the shortest route away from civilization when hunkered down there. A nuclear blast will completely change the landscape. Unless you have mountains or some other immutable landscape fixture, you may not know the best direction of travel when you emerge. The sun may not be visible from the fallout. Navigation may be challenged. Your best bet is to stay put for as long as possible. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this YouTube ad-limited video. Imagine the peace of mind that comes from having one account to shield you from viruses, malware, data leaks, and privacy threats. Surfshark offers just that, providing comprehensive protection for your online activities and presence. But it's more than a VPN. It's a complete solution for safeguarding your identity and data from prying eyes. Whether streaming movies or browsing securely, Surfshark ensures your online presence remains yours alone. It's protection that travels with you on every device and every network, from hotels to coffee shops to restaurants and out in public. It's constantly working to keep your information private and secure. Nobody's comfortable with having a bunch of information about them out there on the web or buried in some company's poorly protected data archives. And even if you're rarely online at all, some insurance companies, healthcare providers, or former employers have data on all of us. And with the advances in computing, hackers can pull all of that together to form a pretty good picture of who we are. Surfshark is a complete package that keeps your identity secure. Take control of your privacy with Surfshark. Enter coupon code CITY for an extra 3 months free at surfshark.deals/city. What to do in the moment of impact. If caught outdoors, lie face down in the lowest area available, or if in a vehicle, move to the floorboard. Once a shockwave subsides, seek shelter promptly, refraining from touching your face and wearing a mask if available. Covering your mouth with a cloth or a towel outdoors is advisable, as your clothing may be contaminated and should be discarded as soon as possible. Promptly cleanse your skin to remove any radiation. Pets entering after the blast should be wiped down and washed immediately. Fallout intensity varies based on detonation altitude. Surface blasts can hurl debris into the atmosphere, increasing fallout. As the blast heat dissipates, radioactive fallout from nuclear fission mixes with debris akin to a campfire smoke, and inhaling those particles can cause cell damage, leading to long-term health risk like cancer and radiation burns on the skin where particles settle. Now, after the shockwave passes, your goal is to be inside before the fallout reaches you. The highest radiation levels will come with the fallout. And once the shockwave passes, you have between 10 and 15 minutes to find shelter or protect yourself from the fallout. Now, if you plan to move to a safer location after the blast, you must do so within these 10 to 15 minutes. Assuming you are at home, immediately close and lock all the windows, turn off all the fans and HVAC systems, close any fireplace dampers. You can use plastic sheeting and duct tape to seal off windows and doors and all airway entry points into your building, especially facing the direction of the blast zone. Now, after a nuclear blast, windows can shatter. Seal them off and continue to seal rooms to the middle and lowest point in your structure where you're going to need to hunker down. If you expect people to come home, you're going to want to seal off an entry room where you can have them stripped down and begin the decontamination process by wiping down and light washing before moving to a more thorough shower. You need to shower off anyone who was outside immediately, using soap, but do not use conditioning products as these can bind the radioactive particles to your hair and skin. Showering in this manner will only be an option immediately after the blast and for a few hours, only because the water in the pipes underground will be somewhat protected from the initial radiation. But once fallout begins, it may become contaminated. Take a dose now if you have potassium iodide tablets in your preps. Potassium iodide is a stable iodine salt that protects the thyroid gland from radioactive iodine. It fills up the thyroid, preventing further absorption of radiation, so it can lessen the long-term effects of radiation. What to do the 2 weeks after? So why 2 weeks? The answer is simply radiation exposure. Radiation from fallout can persist for thousands of years, with gamma radiation levels peaking within the first 24 hours post-blast, but decaying rapidly after that. Around 80% of the fallout energy dissipates within the initial day, with 99% dispersal occurring within 2 weeks. Although the remaining 1% of radiation remains hazardous, you can begin to move with the lower risk of receiving a lethal dose of it. And like snowdrifts, radiation accumulation points can persist dangerously. yet precipitation and wind can aid in reducing levels. After 2 weeks, it won't be free of irradiation, but it will be a bit safer. Monitoring wind direction and speed from the blast onset is crucial. If part of your pre-disaster planning was to use a nuke map calculator, like the one I'll link to in the description and comment section below, you should have a pretty good idea of fallout areas and can begin to assess your safety for evacuation. Now, remaining indoors for at least 24 hours post-blast shields from harmful exposure, with extended indoor stay advisable until radiation levels become less fatal. The heaviest fallout particles, they settle fastest, coating surfaces, necessitating indoor stay until they disperse. Assessing wind pattern aids in determining long-term survival options. If you can visibly see the ash on the ground or raining down from the sky, you absolutely cannot be outside and move through the ash safely without a radiation suit and an NBC or CBRN gas mask. And beyond just the initial blast and fallout, countless fires will result in choking radioactive smoke in the air and blocking out the sun. You're going to want to allow those fires to burn out before attempting to move to your safer location. Now, assume all above ground and exposed food and water sources will be contaminated with deadly radiation levels, which will be compounded by fallout. And it's crucial to assume that any food or water you encounter will have high radiation levels. After a series of nuclear detonations, your environment, it will be contaminated, exposing you to what we currently consider dangerous levels of radiation with long-term health consequences. Therefore, all efforts should focus on minimizing exposure. This principle extends to the food and water that you consume. Now, items stored in refrigerators or unopened metal or glass containers, including boxes, they are safer options and may offer some protection from radiation. And it's essential to understand that nothing can be considered radiation-free unless it has been securely packaged, located outside the blast zone, and free from fallout and ash contamination. Now, fortunately, radioactive impurities in water act similarly to non-radioactive impurities. That means with the right filter, you can filter out radiation from water in the wild to make it safer to drink. And having a water filter as part of your prepping supplies will provide you with a means to have drinkable water, whether hunkering down or moving to a safer location. And look, they're not going to be 100% safe, but they will make the water safer. I'll link to one of those in the comments and description section below. Surviving after nuclear detonation hinges on strategic planning and selecting a secure location. Prioritize moving away from densely populated areas to avoid severe fallout, opting instead for rural or remote regions far from potential targets. And finding areas with access to clean water, such as aquifers or springs, is essential for long-term survival and decontamination efforts. Low valleys or subterranean shelters, including caves or underground structures, are favored for natural radiation shielding. But remember to prepare thoroughly by stockpiling supplies, acquiring survival skills, and establishing a clear evacuation strategy, ensuring readiness for whatever may come. If your pre-established bug-out location meets some or all of those area and terrain priorities, you should go there. If it meets a few of the criteria, you should go there and try to make do with the resources you can muster. It will be better than any population zone. Wherever you go will depend upon the planning you do right now. Do you have a map with evacuation routes planned? Do you have sufficient food and water to sustain you for at least 2 weeks? Are you healthy and fit enough to traverse a transformed landscape? These will be the things that will be the most important to your survival. The biggest threat, however, may not be from the harsh landscape or the potential of getting a lethal level of radiation exposure. It may come from other people. Unlike a localized disaster where safe zones are on the outskirts and governments and non-government aid, assistance, and camps may be established, a nuclear conflict will result in a complete dissolution of the rule of law. It will be a free-for-all struggle to survive for everyone. If you don't have to venture out into the chaos, your odds of survival go way up. If rationing your food and stored food and water will get you through even longer, you will even be better off. Some type of order, even if that's martial, militia, or security group law, will be established. The further you are from dense population zones, the less influence these will have over you. Eventually, you will want to plant food and secure long-term water from deep sources. And there are ways to pull the radiation out of the soil, like planting sunflowers, which will grow rather quickly, and then harvesting and disposing of them. Similar strategies were used in the aftermath of Chernobyl. Again, here, your survival depends upon the pre-planning that you have done. Do you know the 3 signs to look for? Do you have a planned out everyday carry bag? Do you know shelter locations and have a pre-planned evacuation route? Do you have a safe location established? Do you know how to rebuild after a society-ending disaster? Ideally, you're going to want to hunker down right where you are, which is hopefully where all of your long-term preps are located. If you're not in the blast zone, that's always going to be your best strategy. You may need to reevaluate your plan, and don't think you need 20 years of food, water, and a deep underground bunker to survive. I'll post links below to additional resources to help you build a plan. But in reality, you only need 3 months of food and water. If you'd like to learn from a video that we created outlining this exact information, check out our video by the same title, 3 months is all you need as a prepper, which is here on the side of the screen. As always, stay safe out there.